Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today, my guest is Persia Lawson. She's a 2 times author, dating and relationship coach, and a podcaster. Persia and I explore a range of topics, including masculinity and femininity in relationships, the promise of love and faith, staying open to opportunities, and navigating the dating landscape. We also discuss being intentional and the importance of focusing on how you want to feel in a relationship, using scripting to manifest your ideal life, and embracing magic and playfulness in dating. I am so grateful to Persia for this conversation. Her perspective on dating relationships is unmatched in anyone who I've come across online, and really served as a huge light bulb moment for me in realizing some of the blind spots I had within my own experience. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Persia Lawson. Why do you do what you do?
You know what? I just got off a call with a woman who wants to work with me, and she's in such a tiz is the word that comes to mind in her love life. And what's so interesting is I've had so many conversations with so many women from all walks of life all over the world. And so what she's telling me, obviously it's a huge thing to her. For me, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're nowhere near, like you're going to be fine. Like this is going to work for you. And when I say work for you, I mean, you are not, if you do this work, you're not going to feel so shit about yourself and about your love life. Like there's no way. And I know I can say that confidently because I've worked with so many women now. And even more, like I know what I used to be like in my love life. I was so lost. I was so miserable. I was so chaotic. I was the worst person I knew, like the way I was in romance. And now, you know, I'm not going to say the Instagram bullshit. I've got this like perfect marriage. I've got a pretty fucking amazing marriage with an amazing man. And we've built something really quite remarkable over the last 9 years. And it's not perfect. We had a fight this week. But my God, in fact, was it yesterday or the day before? 2 days ago. We get through it so much faster now. Like we just, you know, we know how to navigate the inevitable challenges that come with being in relationships. And for me, it's like relationships, it's not just a nice to have, you know, ultimately for me, I've always been obsessed with relationships and romance. You know, ultimately human life and the propagation, if that's the right word, of humanity requires people to procreate. And so I find it fascinating how much time and energy we invest into our careers and money. And yet everyone goes, oh, love is the most important thing to me. But they don't behave like it is. They don't give it the time and energy and attention it deserves. And for me, I realized, you know, a long time ago when everything just fell apart in my love life in every area of my life. I was like, you know what, if I'm saying that love is the most important thing, I better start behaving like it. And that's how I've ended up doing what I'm doing, and seeing women just go from being so lost and miserable like I was in their own way to now being either, it's not always that they end up in amazing relationships. Sometimes they're like, oh, you know what, I've realized I need to spend some time with me because I've always been with someone else, or just jumping from romantic disaster to the next romantic disaster. And actually, you know what, I'm going to go and travel the world on my own, or I'm going to set up a business. And you know, they just change their outlook on life because they've ultimately changed their relationship with themselves. And our relationship with ourselves is a mirror. Our relationship with everything in our life is a direct reflection of our relationship with ourselves. And that's primarily what my work is about. And I continue to do it, and I will continue to do it forever because it's, I love it. And it's given me so much.
Amazing. And what's like a typical week for you? You obviously got a few things going on. I know you do one-on-one, you do group stuff. You're a writer, podcast. Tell me all about that.
Yeah, so I've got two sort of brands that are kind of complement one another essentially. So Love is Coming is my latest book and my podcast. And it's, you know, the sort of message of that is how to find real love in a superficial world. So it's very much about how do you navigate like romance in the chaos of the modern dating world, because it's absolutely wild out there. And then, and I have various sort of self-study programs related to that. And then my coaching program is sort of for people, women who are, and actually I coach a few men, but just privately. They're not in my like group programs, because that's just women, space for women. But and that brand is Love for Leaders. And so that is, I tend to work with, you know, ambitious, career focused, successful women who are, killing it in work, but really struggling in their love lives. So I work with women in a group capacity, and I work with women one-to-one through that program. And that's very, very hands-on, very in-depth. And I do a lot of sort of brand partnerships. I work with a global dating app called Badoo. So I kind of, and I love them because they're about very much about honesty and transparency, which is what my work is about. And then I'm the dating expert for the elite matchmaking agency, Bose Lion partnership, which is very interesting. Come across some very interesting people in that work. Do various bits with media. Just done a piece with Cosmopolitan that's just come out. Lots of radio, bits of TV. I used to be an actor, so I really enjoy the sort of, performance is the wrong word, but excuse me. I just love talking. I really love talking.
Do you know, well, I was listening to your podcast earlier, and I felt like I was like, seeing behind the curtain, because I'm listening to a woman's podcast. It's like, hello, ladies, or whatever. And I'm like, oh, no, should I be here? And as soon as I heard you, and I was like, oh, wow, she sounds so good. What is that? Why do you sound so good? And okay, yeah. So you've got an acting background, so just like the way you say words and you sit back, and so I was in awe, and it was interesting listening to that. I feel like that's a cheat code. I might start listening to more women's podcasts.
Oh God, yeah. You know what? It will give you such a competitive edge in every area of your life to listen to more women's podcasts. I guarantee it.
I tell you what, and I'll stay on that thread. So when I was, you were talking to a lady, and the subject was precisely what you were saying: women in careers who are killing it, and then being able to be feminine, have that feminine energy, and allow like the man to be more masculine, I guess. And she was saying that a guy said something like, she was being really bossy, and then he said, who's the boss? And then you two are like, yeah, that's well sexy. And I'm like, whoa. So, and this is something, masculinity is like a real common thread in like the last few years for me, what it means to be a man. Trying to lean into my masculinity, but trying not to be like so like overly autistic with I'm masculine. Like, just be masculine. Stop talking about being masculine, Jason. And trying to figure out like what is it that women want? You know, it's not easy. And I think for some reason, I tend to attract more masculine women in my sort of history. But I feel like I want a more feminine woman. Tell me about that. Like, is that a common thing?
Mm-hmm. It's such a good question, because right now we're in a phase of history where the whole concept of what is masculine, what is feminine, everything is sort of being questioned. And not only that, we've also got cancel culture, where everyone's like scared of saying the wrong thing. And so I did English literature at uni. And so there was a lot, I feel like the word patriarchy, I probably said about 50 times a day, and like gender binary and all of this sort of thing. And we've been conditioned, particularly as women, to go, the patriarchal structure works because men strong, active, in charge, women passive equals weak, feminine equals flowery dress. I've got red lipstick on at the moment, maybe, although that has been described as masculine. before, which is another interesting angle. I'm just going to add a tiny little tangent here. I can't remember where I heard this, but it's like if you're wearing red lipstick as a woman, it's like it's almost like it's a statement, but it's kind of, if you think about it, not like if you kiss someone with red lipstick, you're going to get red lipstick. So it's almost like a battle. It's like almost like don't come close to me. I heard that said. So it's like a masculine thing. So that's it. It's like everything can be flipped on its head at the moment. So I want to say that, and actually the piece that I did with Cosmo that came out this week was all about the trad wife. I don't know if you've heard about the stereotype. So more women, increasing number of women are following these influencers online who are like, basically go and get a rich man and be like a traditional 50s housewife.
So it's a trad, like the
traditional.
A trad would go, right, but also it sounds like Chad, right? So, because that's another term, that's like the man. Have you heard this term?
Is it? I've not heard that. I'm learning something. So Chad, what's that mean?
Oh, that's all good. So this is quite interesting. So Chad is, it's kind of in like the sort of black pill, a little bit of red pill, incel-ish, kind of dark.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he's a Chad. And a Chad is like the traditional masculine, big jaw, wearing a suit, and it's kind of a negative term. Well, I've heard it in a positive term, like Giga Chad is something you hear. Like Giga Chad, it's like just like this mega guy. It's just he's a Giga Chad. And then, but what was really interesting is, you know, the whole black pill, blue pill. You've heard this terminology, right?
I'm thinking of The Matrix, and I'm thinking of Limitless when you were saying that.
Yes.
So...
Okay, so it's kind of related, though.
Yeah. Tell me.
So, yeah, I'm not qualified to explain this fully, but it is related to this. But I didn't even realize until I watched The Matrix, and then I was like, oh. So red pill is like you see the world for as it is. You know, men need to be masculine and provide resources, and if you're not if you don't have this good looks, then you're going to struggle unless you work out. I think roughly it's obviously not something I know much about. Then you've got like blue pill, which is like the Matrix. Take the blue pill and basically just check out. So blue pill is kind of like I think I'm right in saying it's kind of like I'm done with this. I just want to play games or whatever. As I'm saying this, I feel like that's wrong.
Isn't it one is you take the pill that this is really interesting because I was actually singing on a a mushroom psilocybin ceremony on Saturday, and it's like when you take plant medicine and you start to see, it's like all the constructs that we have been taught and conditioned to believe this is real. You know, like these gender binaries, these like capitalist, like all of these things, like even, mortgages, taxes, it's all, we are all animals. We're all just life existing. We've made it all up. It's all bollocks. Like it really is all bollocks. Yeah. And it's like when you take that, you start to see through it. And that's what it made me think of. And so on one level, it's much easier just to go like, I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to just believe that what I see, that's all there is to it. And in relationships, on one level, it's the easier choice. But then again, it's not. As I experience, it's like because you have this constant niggle. And do you remember that book, The Princess and the Pea? It's like she's like on the mattresses and she's like there's something not right. And it's like this tiny little pea and she just can't stop thinking about it. I think some people in life, they can just ignore the niggle. Some people, I think, they just can't even feel it. And the fact is, if you're doing a podcast, I think a lot of people, if you're someone who is questioning and like interested and curious, you have already taken I can't remember which color it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the red pill.
You wouldn't want to know. You wouldn't want to delve into all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like, but having gone through, partly plant medicine, therapy, I mean, everything. I've done so much. I tell you what, it's better. Like for me, I can speak for myself here and for a lot of people I know and clients, it's like you go through a lot of it. The reason it's a hard choice is at the beginning, it's like short-term pain, long-term gain. because it's suddenly like you go through this grief process of like everything I thought I believed is kind of, and I've been making these choices and I didn't like, because I've been conditioned to, essentially. And it gets, so now I feel I've got my power back. It's like, I don't just accept things and go, well, this is just the life I'm resigned to. I've done things in my life that I didn't think were possible because I've been willing to like do the hard thing in the short term. And then what happens on the other side is freedom. Some people don't want to be free because with freedom, it's really scary because it's like, I mean, everything is uncertain, but it's
There's
like
no excuses.
But people can live in the illusion of their certainty because they go, well, you know, again, taxes, more, like all of these things, that's certain. But it's like, look, we're all going to die and we don't know when. We all have a death day. We don't know when that is. We're on a ball hurtling through space really fucking fast. That's actually terrifying. And that's why I think we've been conditioned to just put our whole belief and, you know, everything into these made up systems. But actually for me, I think once you come a certain point, there's no going back, and I wouldn't want to go back. And this sounds like we've gone off a massive tangent, but I think this is so relevant to our love lives, because when you realize, it's like, what if I actually get to create my own love life? What if I have been creating it and I've just been doing it on a system that has not worked for me, that leaves me, it feels superficial, it feels transactional, it feels shit. And actually it doesn't have to be like that. And I know that from my own, you know, seeing my parents go from really horrific drug addiction to transforming their lives and their relationship, and my own journey with it, and clients and just people I've met. And I'm like, oh my God, you couldn't pay me to go back to like before I knew all this shit. Like I just wouldn't, there's not an amount of money you could pay me to go back. It's very deep for a Friday afternoon, isn't it?
I loved it. Yeah, no, I love this. We're gonna have a good conversation. So let's hover over that a little bit. You were talking about sort of seeing things how it really is. You know, the veil come in, being sort of red pilled or mushroom pilled, whatever it is, and not wanting to go back. Tell me about, like, what was it like before? Like, what's the difference? What were you not seeing?
I wasn't seeing, like, I just thought I was really unlucky in love. I was like, I just don't understand why all these guys are ghosting me, or like addicts, or like just fucking nightmares. And I don't know why I keep cheating on every like nice guy that comes into my life. And I guess I'm just a dick. Like I couldn't understand that I was a product of conditioning. Yes. And that was a really big thing. So when I realized, it's like, okay, you've got to, so in my book, Love is Coming, and in my program, Love for Leaders, I take people on this journey, and it's it's 3 phases. The first phase is heal. And in that phase, it's where you've got to look at, right, why am I where I am in my love life, and kind of across the board in my life? And you look back, and you look very in depth back at childhood, at past relationships, at all sorts of different factors. You look at your belief systems, you look at your trauma, just everything. It's really confronting. And then we kind of and then we get you to like heal and release a lot of that shit. And then we move into the next phase, which is attract. So where heal is about releasing, letting go, sort of coming back to like almost like getting you to neutral. Attract is right now we're in a healthier place. We're going to start the playing and creating and manifesting and like creating this different reality. When it comes to dating, it's like, well, how would I like to feel in dating? And how have I been showing up, and what ways that I can show up better? I talk about the 4 missing pieces of the courtship puzzle. So the first is magnetic energy. The first thing we notice about people, we think it's how they look. You might notice someone's looks, but really it's energy. Right. And the next phase is powerful discernment. So that's where, you know, as a woman, our fathers, you know, were choosing our husbands for us. It was a business deal up until not very long ago. In fact, that still goes on in a lot of the world. So now our husbands, let me speak for myself and the women I coach, our fathers are not doing that job. We need to learn to like be more discerning about the types of like, what do I actually want? Like what type of man, what type of relationship? And it sounds really fucking obvious. It's so basic, bitch. But it's like most people I encounter, it's like it's just whoever sort of comes along. Or you might get someone who's very clear, like I need them to be loaded or whatever, but they're not. It's like, you know, I talk about the power couple from the 80s, that you had to be rich, beautiful and famous. We all know, looking at celebrity culture, that ain't going to guarantee you a sustainable, lasting relationship. Ben Affleck and J-Lo, I've just heard, are apparently getting divorced. They've, you know, bless her. It's being rich, famous and beautiful is not enough if what you really want is to build a sustainable relationship. I talk about the true power couple relationship that is actually, it's like based on what can I bring to this? Who do I want to show up as? What kind of person do I want to be? So instead of, you know, I say we've got to stop looking outside. We live in an Amazon Prime culture, and we need to stop looking outside of ourselves for the partner we want to get and start looking inside of ourselves for the partner we want to be. When you start to show up in your love life from that sense of depth, you're going to attract very different people, and you're going to really stand out in like the oversaturated dating marketplace. So you learn how to show up in a healthier way. The next thing after powerful discernment is effective communication, which is the thing that all the women that I've ever met struggle with the most, because we weren't allowed to speak up and communicate. So we are not well practiced at it in the grand scheme of history. And also, I think that we like lives in our sort of systems that women who did speak up often, you know, burnt at the stake. You're a witch, burnt at the stake, head locked off, all of that when a woman was in her power. So I think that we've got a lot of like terror, real. And I know that for myself when I started, you know, and it sounds so obvious, like saying to a guy, that doesn't feel good when you check out that waitress while you're sat on a date with me, right. Or when you say you're going to text or call and I don't hear from you for weeks. That doesn't feel good to me. The idea of saying something that is completely reasonable, I'd be like, oh, no, I'll be rejected. You know, there's this fear of being rejected. So it's learning how to communicate, which is a skill set that we are not taught. So we got to learn how to do it. And then finally, it's radical surrender. One of the best pieces of life advice I was ever given was when I was an actor. And a director said to me, darling, what you need to remember is do the work and then leave it in the wings. And what she meant in her very lovey way was like, you do all this deep work on yourself, but then when you're on a date, this is how I translated it and sort of made it relevant to love and dating. I don't want to be sitting there like auditioning someone, or I want to just be present with a human being, and I've got to surrender. I don't know if I'm ever going to see this person again. I don't know if we're going to have chemistry and connection. I don't know what's going to happen. So I've got to surrender my idea of what I think this should be and just show up and be present. And that's like, and that's really for life. Like none of us fucking know what's going to happen by dinner time tonight. Not really. And so it's like just being more relaxed and holding on more loosely. And so that's the skill set that I teach, that 4 sort of part system in attract. And then we get to commit. And this is really about power and self-respect and boundaries, and like how, you know, on one level, it's how do you move from casually dating into committed relationship. But it's also, you know, where you start asking the bigger questions, like what future do I want for myself? How do you navigate conflict in relationships? How do you, something I'm very passionate about is I believe that relationships should not just have a positive impact on the couple, which of course we all want that. We want the relationship to feel good, but also on our loved ones, communities, and even the world. This is what I call the true power couple relationship, which is about, and it sounds a bit wanky, I'm aware of that, but the reason this came up for me is when I thought back to my happiest times in my relationship with my husband, we've done some traveling, we've done some really luxury, impressive things in our relationship. But the memory that always came back to me is when we were traveling the world and we went and we lived in this like tin hut in this village in Nepal that had been, the school there had been destroyed by the 2015 earthquakes. And we helped rebuild it. I was teaching the kids Shakespeare. Me and my husband were like singing Oasis to them, and like it was so much fun. We were singing in a tin hut, a drop toilet. It was not, and these people were the happiest and most free people I've ever met. And that sense of like giving back felt so good. Last year we put on a festival and we raised money for our friends' charity. We had so much fun. We raised all this money and we brought all our like people we love together. People were like fell in love there and now in relationships. People like had like business connections. There's all sorts of amazing things happened. And it just got me to thinking about like, what if our relationships aren't just about us? You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but what if it also takes a village to raise a happy couple?
Yeah.
And when I've come at my relationship from that perspective, it's just so much more enjoyable and so much healthier. So yeah, that I don't even remember what the original question was.
No, it's awesome. I love it. That well, you know, in this job, if someone's talking, do not interrupt. So talk to me about the book. Love is Coming.
What, this one? Just for our listeners, just holding up a copy of my book. I always have it as a prop now, because when someone asks me that question, I'm always like scampering around my office trying to find it. So this is my second book. Took me 5 years to write. Wow. Like mostly wrote it in lockdown, in one of the many lockdowns. And it's basically, I wanted to write a book that wasn't like a typical self-help book. So I was like, what do I want to read on a beach or wherever? I want to read something where I'm going to be inspired and I'm going to learn stuff, but I'm also going to be entertained. I have never really done exercises in a book. I'm sure there are some people do, but I'm like, if you want to like do the work on your love life, then you need to come and like do one of my programs, which are kind of, for me, they're a better way to do that. But a book is like, for me, it's like, and I want to entertain, but you know, I want to be entertained, and I love books you just can't put down. And so it's lots of kind of stories, because as I said, I was an actor, so I'm a storyteller really. Some of the stories are hilarious, very inappropriate. Some are very sad and moving. Some, I mean, there's just sort of everything in there. Stories mainly from my life, but also I've got a few clients and parents and just different things. And yeah, it goes through that framework of heal, attract, commit. So you kind of get the different lessons and ideas associated with those different phases. But I'm not asking you to like, go and do homework now, because that's not, in those books, I just turn over the page. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really, really proud of it. And I also just want to say, anyone who's ever written a book, I have so much respect for them, because it is not easy. It's really not easy. It's such a sort of a thing you do on your own. And, you know, it's, for me, writing books is therapy. My first book, The Inner Fix, I literally finished that 2 days before I met my husband. And what is so weird is I met him at a festival. And so 2 days before I met him, the last chapter was the love chapter. And I was single at the time. And I wrote, I feel like I'm ready for my relationship now. And I want to be in a relationship that inspires me and challenges me, where I feel supported and I support the other person, where we're both growing, you know, all of this sort of thing, which I didn't realize I was talking essentially about a true power couple relationship. I didn't know that's what it was then. And then I met him and I realized, my God, you know what? Intentions and writing things down really works. Yeah. So I recommend it.
And so Love is Coming, what did writing this book do for you?
For me, as a person or career?
Person. You can tell me career as well, but
yeah, person's way more interesting. For me as a person, I was already with my husband by this point. I feel like my first book, The Inner Fix, is what enabled me to meet my husband, because I processed so much and I got really clear on what it is that I wanted. And Love is Coming for me was more about sort of, again, not to sound wanky, but it was like service. It was like, this is the book that I wish I could give my former self in my early to mid 20s, when I was so lost. Because I always, like, I don't know where I heard this, but I remember hearing this thing like, look, if you knew that your dream relationship, like your own version of true power couple relationship, whatever that meant for you, it doesn't need to be this big glitzy thing. It might just be like, you know, we're just a happy, lovely couple who our friends and family love being around, you know, really simple. If you knew that this time next year you would have that with 100% certainty, if you knew that love was coming, how would you show up in your love life now? And that was really like the sort of question that the book was born from. So it's like, you know, love is coming. It's that promise. It's that like, it's coming.
It's like faith, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm trying to say. It's faith. It's faith.
That's beautiful.
And it's interesting, isn't it? How much that would like, well, it would for me. Because when I heard that question, it's like, well, I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't put up with these dickheads who ghost me or treat me like shit. I also wouldn't like sweep bad behavior under the carpet or red flags. I wouldn't like, I would actually respect myself a lot more. If I knew that I was going to be in an amazing relationship, I wouldn't settle for bullshit now. I probably would stop obsessing over it and chasing it.
Yeah.
And I would just be happy with what I have and make the most of where I am now. And of course, which is what I did before I met my husband. And of course, when you're living from that energy, of course, you're so much more likely to attract something, what I call a healthy, exciting, meaningful relationship, because you're kind of on that frequency, as opposed to what I used to call it. You said I could swear, so I'm going to get a bit out there now. I used to do this thing that I call catting for cock, where, you know, like back in the day, it's like catting for drugs. Like at the end of the night, people are like, right, we've got to get some coke, you know, like whatever, catting for coke, they'd call it. And I was like, oh, that was it. I wasn't doing that. Well, I was actually, that's a lie, I was. But more than that, I would be like, I'm going to cat for cock with someone who's hopefully got some coke. And then I haven't done coke in a long time, but just that's the mess I was in back in those days. And I would just, it's like a night would not be, no matter how much fun I would have had, it was like the night hadn't been a success unless I'd met a guy and ended up with a guy, and usually they were fucking not good news. And actually it's, you know, that behavior, and I've seen it, you know, I've seen it with friends and even clients where it's like, you know, they call it nowadays thirsty, when you're out and they're not being present with you, they're friends, they're like looking around for a guy, and it's like it's not good. It's not good. And I get it's coming from a place of fear and scarcity and loneliness and all those things. The irony is, it's like, but when you're showing up in that energy, if you do attract someone, they ain't going to be they're not going to be good news. I mean, that tends to be the pattern. Whereas if you're just present with your friends and have fun, and if you meet someone, it's a bonus, it's the cherry on top, but it doesn't make your life, it doesn't make your experience. You don't put that pressure on it.
It's
so
a
again,
lovely
I've gone
cue.
off on a tangent there.
This love is coming, because it makes me think a little bit around, like I've been single for like 3 years, and I used to fret about it a little bit more. Yeah, I used to fret more, you know, I started like, because I want a big family. And, you know, you start thinking about, you know, biological clocks, etc. And I sort of gave myself permission to, and just one of my friends said to me, like, you're good. So, you know, stop worrying. And I basically was like, okay, what if I'm 35 now? What if I gave myself permission to stop worrying until I'm 40? Just stop worrying about it. I can worry then. Like I've scheduled in the worrying if it's still an issue. Like I can address it then. I can free sperm then. I can fill in the blank then. Disappear off to Thailand, whatever. But like, and it's kind of simple, but I've got to be careful as well, because that can actually make me a little bit of not avoidant, but too closed off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, just training every day and podcasts and not allowing and you know, the possibility for it to come, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
I do like that cue of like, how would you show up if you were certain that you were going to be in love in 12 months' time? And I might steal it.
I've got the perfect, because that is a really good point, and I've heard that said before. So what you need to do is you need to be aware of the opportunities that come your way, and you need to say yes to them, because the avoidant thing is very real. And I see that a lot with people where it's like something that there's an opportunity that comes along, and you're going to be getting one later, because I've just got I felt like a little nudge to ask you something after this podcast episode.
Okay.
So you're like, what? What's it going to be? But I do see that is that sometimes we get so like wedded down. Oh no, I'm not worrying and whatever, and then we're like missing. But like, there's an opportunity here. So that makes me think of. I wonder if you've heard this. I'm going to completely bastardize this. It's like one of the. I don't know if it's a fable or something like that. But there's like a man drowning, and he's like, it's all right, God's gonna save me, God's gonna save me. And then like a helicopter comes to try and help him, and he's like, no, it's all right, God's gonna save me. And then like a boat comes, is like tries to help, he says, no, God's gonna save me. And then someone else, can't remember, comes and he's no, God's gonna save me. Then he dies, he drowns. He goes to the gates of heaven, and he's like, God, you didn't save me. And God's like, I sent a ship, a helicopter, whatever it was, the other things. And it's like, you know, the key is you have to stay open. So on the one hand, I'm not going to worry. I'm going to be present and enjoy where I am. But I've also got to be open and say yes to things. And often the reason that we don't is that the opportunities and invitations that come about kind of are a bit out of our comfort zone. So from an example from my life, this isn't about dating, but just as like, you know, when you find yourself in a situation, you're like, how did I get here? And like, for example, I went traveling with my husband and we ended up on a great white shark boat in fucking Australia. One of his best friends from uni like ran this boat. It's a really famous boat. And it's like, oh, this boat, like it costs thousands, and we could go like diving with great white sharks, who, by the way, I'm terrified of great white sharks. I'm terrified of the sea. I'd never scuba dived before. My husband's very brave, and he went to the bottom of the seabed and had 5 great whites circling him. And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, look, you can just go in the surface cage. And I'm like, how have I ended up here? I didn't choose this. But at the same time, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm so out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to say yes. And I've got a tattoo. I know, do I have a tattoo of a shark? No, I've got a tattoo, because then the same situation with skydiving. I've got a tattoo of a little, because I'm terrified of planes, but not anymore because I did a skydive. Because again, I found myself in this situation. It was out my comfort zone, and yet something in me was like, say it, like, if we just did things always in our comfort zone and our zone of familiarity, like we'd never grow, and we'd miss these amazing opportunities. And actually from both of those instances, we made like these amazing friends, and like different travel opportunities happened. So what I'm saying is, yes, give yourself permission to let yourself off the hook. And like, I can come back to this when I'm 40. At the same time, keep your head up, keep looking up, keep being open and receptive to the opportunities that come your way. Because that's where I see people going wrong so much of the time.
Where do you think women are struggling the most at the moment in their relationships?
In the actual relationships, and I'm going to speak for myself here, because mostly my relationship's pretty good, but what's happened is we've had such a shift in a number of decades, and it's just got increasingly, you know, in the last decade, whereby women, you know, were back in the day, you've got the 1950s housewife. We were at home, we were bringing up kids, the husband was at work, and he would pay for everything. And now, and so that, and you know, that's all we knew. That's how it was. And now women, we are allowed to own our own property, and we are allowed to make our own money and have our own bank account. These are all very new things. And so as women, we've not had long to get used to this power over our own lives and how that affects our romantic dynamics. So there's a reason, you know, I created Love for Leaders, because so many women, majority of women come to me because they're single, and they want, you know, they're very career focused, they're successful in their love life, but they can't understand why they can't like get a relationship, or can't get a relationship that's healthy and that sticks. But some women will come to me when they're in a relationship, and it's like, I feel like I'm doing all the things, and I'm trying to do all the things, and my husband or my partner, because this is sort of how, you know, he goes to work, and that's great, and he might treat me to dinner here or there, but he doesn't necessarily help with the housework, and there's all these things that he doesn't really see that I'm doing, that sort of make the relationship and the household work. And before, like, women, we were carrying all the shit, but we didn't, in terms of the home sphere.
Yeah.
But now it's like we sort of, again, this is generalization. But I've heard it from enough women to know, I'd say this is true for the majority, that we are now also, there's a thing called the mental load, remembering the birthdays, just all of the mental things that as women, we're very good at multitasking for the most part, because we've had to be, you know, if you were rearing children and you've got 3 kids, and you've got to do all the things. Men tend to be really like more, one thing and really focused on that. So it's like, I'll speak for myself here. This has been actually what me and my husband have been working through this week. And this is coming from a man who loves me, who treats me amazing, is very generous, all these things. But he's a messy fucker. Like he doesn't see what I see. And I refuse to live in squalor. But it was sort of like, I feel like I'm living sometimes I feel like I'm living as a 50s housewife, in terms of I'm like keeping on top of everything in the house. And I'm also trying to run a business, but because I'm doing it at home for the most part, like it's like I feel like my career or my work is coming second, because he works in the film industry. So he has insane hours. So I feel for him, but he goes out at 7, he comes back sort of 9 a lot of the time. It's a long day. So it's kind of like, well, in that case, we've had to have these just conversations, and it's not about like, he'll take me for dinner and all that's lovely. But I was like getting really frustrated, because I was like, and I'm very about like, we pay equal mortgage, equal bills, everything. And but I'm sort of running a house and you're not, and your work, and it was bringing all these questions up. And so I've been speaking to women about this. And it's like, oh, this is because we don't really talk about this stuff, and every different relationship has, I think that a big part of it is money, that we're so uncomfortable, particularly in the UK, to talk about it. And now I'm actually talking more and more about money in my work, because I've seen, especially if you're getting married, you're getting into a business partnership with someone. No one talks about that. And then until they're going through a divorce, and, I've coached many women coming out of divorce, and it's like, I wish that always say, I wish I'd known this stuff. And I wish I'd kind of realized this stuff before I got married, or, it's not easy to have to deal with it when you're going through something that's already so emotionally horrific as a divorce. And so I think money's been a thing that's coming up with women more and more, and in relationships, because it's it's up there with one of the number one reasons why people break up or get divorced, is around money. So I'm very much about, okay, there needs to be conversation here from day one, and not just what I think happens a lot of the time, where it's like we just don't really speak about money and how it shows up in our love life and in our relationships.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I suppose it plays into this whole masculinity thing, and what do we want, and how should a man be, and but then there's also, like you say, it's that natural tendency is man goes out, finds resources, come home, house is sorted by woman, is like the real basic meta, isn't it? And like, but of course, like, that's not the case if your wife or girlfriend is also running doing a full-time job and things. And it's so no wonder why like men don't really kind of know their role, but also women, like, it sounds like they're struggling to find their place in, like, having the balance of that femininity and that sort of like caring nature and looking after the guy, and allowing that. So difficult, isn't it? And what do you think? I mean, what is the solution? I mean, other than communication, or do you think that, like, to some extent we are pushing against the tide of like 100,000 years of evolution?
I think there are so many nuances to this that, like, every couple has to, it's have the hard conversation, which is, and the thing is, until you learn the skill set, this is why in my work, so much of this is around conversations and skill set and communication piece. because what can happen is you have a fight and you know, you don't talk about it until it blows up into a fight. And you know, that even happened with us. We had sort of talked about it, but we hadn't got things concrete, and it didn't feel resolved because we're exhausted and blah blah busy. And then it blew up, and it's like, okay, no, what we need to do, I went away and did some, like, I had to really go away and sit with this and go like, what is it, you know, because I'm not dealing with a selfish man here. This isn't even really about him. I was like, this is actually bigger. It's I've grown up, and as has he, with watching, well, his mum has, you know, ran this nursery, and she also ran the like she's a Wonder Woman, so he's very used to a Wonder Woman energy. I've grown up with, my mum is, she's a same but different kind of Wonder Woman. So I think I've like, okay, the woman, that's, whether I like it or not, the woman takes care of the house, and you know, being great, but also I'm always been a high achiever and ambitious, and so I'm doing all that, and it just like, I was like, I cannot hold this. And I know that he's working crazy hours, but it's like really basic things of like, because we renovated our house recently, it's like, we need to get, like, I've basically been trying to get a cleaner, and you know, and it was just not flowing, and I was like, right, I just end up doing it because getting a cleaner was such a ball ache. And I was like, do you know what? Why is it up to me to do this? Like, there's just certain things that I was like, I need you to kind of meet me halfway here. And do you know what? When I said that, and I said it in a, you know, actually didn't initially say that great, but he actually, I blew up a few days ago because I was just exhausted. I was like, I need some support and help. I came back, the house was a mess, and I'd left it immaculate. And I've got a real thing about that. And I lost my shit. And what was great is, with men, when you learn how to, you know, I was emotional. I said, listen, I'm sorry, I'm angry, and I'm feeling resentful. I'm just really upset by this. And he really heard it, and he was like, I'm so sorry. The next thing I know, he's like, right, I've spoken to a cleaner. You know, he goes into what I love about men is, you know, is the fixing. And sometimes women get really pissed off about that because they're like, I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to hear me.
Yeah.
But actually, I was like, no, this like, really, I'm like, this is very practical problems. And I actually really love, I'm like, I actually want the masculine energy to fix this, because I feel like I've been like, and I just was like, I'm done. And I said, and also, I'm going to be really honest. And I was like, he works on, so it's not like he's always got one job. He does different films, whatever. So it's like, we are going to need to have like almost like a monthly meeting about our relationship. And it sounds really boring. I was like, I'm doing all the paperwork, all the shit. I'm like, I need to sit down and be like, where are we at this month? What do I need? What do you need? How can I support you? How can, you know, like a business meeting, because we are in a business relationship, in a business partnership in this marriage. And it sounds very unsexy, but when you just get that done, then you can enjoy yourself and fuck off with the resentments, because you're actually just dealing with it. And it just felt, and I was like, you know what, for this month, I'm actually going to pay less. I'm not going to pay anything down the middle, because the time and energy that I've put into the house, you're going away and you're earning this money. My career, I haven't, you know, I haven't been able to give it the time that you've been able to give your career, because you've got a boss. Do you know what I mean? I was like, he wasn't consciously thinking about this, but I realized, you know what, I have to show it. It's not like he's done something wrong. I've been allowing it to be like this because I've been trying to be Wonder Woman without realizing it, because I've been conditioned to do that. And so what I'm going to do is like, yeah, you know what, for this month, I'm not going to, because it doesn't feel fair to me. It doesn't feel good. And he was just like, completely fair enough. Next month, it may be different. I don't know where we're going to be next month. So that was like, that's been a breakthrough for us in the last few weeks of sort of going through this journey of like, we actually need to have a monthly meeting. And I'm like, you know, I can talk about my emotions till the cows come home, but I'm like, no, here's a spreadsheet, you know, here's whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I think that, and I've really learned this from my dad, because my dad, like, if I cry in front of my dad's like, oh, don't cry. But he's he can't deal that well with emotions, but he's a fixer. And so I'm someone, as you can probably tell, I talk a lot. And I used to do this in relationships, it's like, I'd be so scared to just say what the fucking thing I needed was, or what the issue was. I just talk and talk and talk. My dad's just like, what do you need? So I'm like, just be really clear and simple. And the reason us women struggle with that is we're so afraid if we ask what we need, we're not going to get that need met. And now I'm just like, do you know what? It's my job to ask. Whether you give it to me or not, that's that's not actually in my hands.
Why do you
But
think
I've got
that
to
is?
learn to ask.
You said that women tend to be afraid that they're not going to get the needs met. Like, is that an anxious attachment thing, or is that just a kind of rough general? Pardon?
I think it's all sorts. I think there's a lot of different factors, but I would just say, you know, women, a bit like I have a whole chapter in my book on this. I really, because I did English literature at uni, so I went into the sort of research vortex of it, and I was looking at, you know, in literature, how women have been, you know, we have been conditioned. It's like silent, chaste, obedient for a long, long time. And it was like, we don't have agency. You do what you were told. At this age, you're going to be married off to that bloke because your father says so. You don't have any control over that. You don't have your own money. Like, you have no agency over your life. And we've had so much change in such a small amount of time, us women, and we've done a bloody good job. Like, look what we have done in 50 years.
Yeah.
Look what we've done. I'm really proud of women. But that rapid change, in the same way we see with social media, you know, look how much has happened in that. But with anything that's rapid, like with technology.
Yes, this is new territory.
We don't know the long-term effect, you know, exactly. We don't know, because it's all an experiment. It's all a fucking experiment. And I think that's why, just generally in life, and particularly in relationships, like, we've got to come from the perspective of curiosity and, you know, being brave and saying, this feels good to me, this doesn't feel good to me, what do you think? That's a great question to ask a man. I have learned the hard way. Blah 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 blah, this is my experience. So not blaming or projecting. What do you think?
Yeah,
and
we
when
love
I
it.
asked my husband that, yeah,
we love it. Like, you said it then, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll tell you what I think.
Instead of, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Men, for the most part, don't like that.
But just,
would you say?
Do you know what I love is, like, that we're able to talk about rough generalizations of men and women. And, like, you'll be so aware of this as someone who's in the media, of, like, cancel culture, and we can't talk about, you know, we can't talk about, because we've got feminism and toxic masculinity and all these things. And I do feel like just recognizing, like, our true nature, on average, our true nature, and, like, working, like, going with that flow, that natural flow of life, and recognizing, I am a man, you are a woman, in that type of relationship, and being okay with that, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll be completely honest, I struggled, like, keeping on top of my own house as a single man. Really struggled. And actually, I was quite good at doing it when I was in a relationship. I was quite good at cleaning up after everything. But guess what? I couldn't do anything else. I'd clean the house to the best of my capability in, like, an extreme manner. And then I'd organize some corner and, like, get really, like, get really OCD about it. But then, like, yeah, my own house, it's either a complete mess or it's, like, completely, like, all in order, and it's never one or the other, because it's that focused attention thing, this, like, spotlight, where you know, I find that I can tend to only operate in that way. So for me, I gave myself, like, permission to get a cleaner. Changed my life. And I held, like, a lot of shame around that, and, you know, like, there's a lot to do with, like, money, and, like, I can't, you know, can I afford this, and judgment from my family, like, oh, you're getting a cleaner, like, and it's like, do you know what? I'm good at this. There's certain things I'm good at. I'm not good at this. So I'm willing to surrender and go, I will pay someone else to do that so that I can do other stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gone off on a tangent there about me not being able to tidy up very well, but it's yeah, we're talking about gender dynamics and stuff, and yeah, I think recognizing that, or recognizing like your own dynamics in a relationship, because perhaps you're a more masculine man or masculine woman or a more feminine man, and it's like being able to see that, and it's self-awareness, isn't it? Always comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. It's really good to talk about, like, cancel culture can do one.
Yeah.
Can fuck off. I think it's so toxic. And in fact, I'm gonna say this. I was like, oh, can I say this? And I was like, no, I'm gonna say this because
Sorry, no one's listening.
I am allowed to say I'm allowed to say what my experience is, and I think so many of us are now afraid. This is like dangerous territory. You ready for me to go there?
Yes, please.
Okay,
I would take it as a compliment if you managed to get me cancelled before I've even got going.
No, I won't get you cancelled because I'm bringing up, they cancel me. No, okay, so there's been all this. I'm not going to talk too much about the JK Rowling thing. There's obviously been all sorts there. But obviously everyone was talking about this, and I, you know, clients, it was coming up with clients, and I spoke at an event in Manchester, and in the toilet was in a basement, and it was I don't know if it was a sort of genderless toilet or whatever it was. I once was sexually assaulted in a toilet, and it's really traumatic. When I went into this toilet, I was like, I don't feel safe. A man followed me in, and this really worries me because I'm like, there's so many nuances, and there's always going to be someone who doesn't feel seen or feels, you know, whatever. But I, as a woman, it's like, I want to have a space where I feel safe. When I'm, you know, a very vulnerable thing of going to the toilet, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is happening across the board. Where I don't think it's, again, we're going into binaries. It's like, you're either pro this or anti this, and it's like, no, there are so many more nuances.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, when she was saying about women have fought really hard for these rights, and it feels like we're kind of going backwards, that I did feel in that instance, I was like, I have to acknowledge that if I'm not allowed to say I don't feel safe, it was nothing. I didn't know these men. It was nothing on. It was my own past experience. But I've had enough of them. It's not been one time, and it's not just been me. It's like, I know many women who've had similar experiences.
The men are disgusting, by the way. They're minging. Like, I'm not, by the way, but like men that I've worked with are like, and I'm like, this is where like my feminine energy comes in. Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm like, there's a toilet brush there, and like, do you know what I mean? And like, a lot of men are gross, and sometimes it's like I will defecate and leave it my scent.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, like it's just like, no, yeah. So I get it. Yeah, men are fucking disgusting. It's horrible in there. No one wants to go in. You do not want to see a men's toilet. It's disgusting.
No.
Continue. No. Sorry.
Yeah, that was sort of a general point, but it is also from the gross perspective. And again, we're not saying all men, we're not saying all women. We're just like, many women I know feel the same, of like, I just wanted to have a space that, because the fact is, men and women are, you know, there are biological differences. That is not to say that's not to say that I'm anti-transgender or, you know, any of that. And I think that's the thing that really worries me with this cancel culture. It's like, oh, well, if you say that, that means you must also mean this. It's like, no, I didn't say that. All I'm saying is that I feel that I should have a right to feel safe and to be in a space where, you know, I feel safe.
Do you know that center ground is lonely, isn't it? Do you feel lonely, like in the middle?
Yeah, because but the thing is, so many women I know feel the same, but are so scared of saying it. That's why I felt, like, you know, it's important that I say this, because, you know, it just, one thing does not mean that you are suddenly all of these awful things and that you're anti, you know, it just is like what happened with COVID. You know, it's this constant thing of people being pitted into two camps, and it's so unhealthy. And then I just think, if that's how you show up, how the hell do you ever expect to have a healthy relationship? You can't, because when you're coming from that sort of polarization like that, there's no room for the reality of all the nuances, because relationships are constantly about compromising the nuances, nothing is black. Some things are black and white. Most things are not black and white. Life is the shades of grey. And I feel like what's happening with society is that we're like, that's not allowed anymore. You have to be this camp or that camp. You can't be in the middle or like somewhere on the spectrum. And I think most people actually are on the spectrum because we are complex.
Yeah.
And I also think that, can we come from a space of love, tolerance, and kindness? So instead of like something like that, when like I just as a woman would like to have a space when I go to the toilet, just to have a space where I can feel safe. And it's not an indictment on men, or it's not anything about that. It's purely from, because let's look at the statistics. Look at the statistics of violence against women, sexual assaults against women. Why is that getting ignored? Again, it just makes me so upset and so angry. And then you're kind of shamed for kind of going, but actually I feel like we're being gaslit. That's what it feels like. As a woman, I feel like this cancel culture is really, it's gaslighting. And it's like, this is like statistic. This is not me being crazy or unreasonable. This is like really fair. Anyway, I just had to say that. Felt it was important to say that.
Yeah, thank you. What do you think about social media? Like, what's going on with social media and relationships?
Oh God, where does one start? I mean, let's look at the common problems I see. So that you've got the dating things of like everyone's checking each other out, checking out this sort of hologram, this sort of impression of a person before they're even like willing to get on the date. And I get that's a really human thing. I met my husband sort of, I never saw his, I met him at in a rave at a festival. So we met old school, and I loved that. And so also, I had a bit of a stalk when we were already dating for a few weeks, but by that point I was like, I'm already connected to you. So there's nothing, I don't really give a shit what's on your social media and vice versa. I mean, bear in mind that I don't even think he did Google me because he didn't give a shit, but about it, I'll just speak to you. Why would I Google you? If I've got a question, I'll just ask you. I way prefer that. But if he had Googled me, he would have found all sorts of shit, like double page spread in the Sun of me being like, I've had a man on every continent, all this shit. Which was sadly very true, but just about being a cheating nightmare, and because by the time I met him, I had a book deal, so it was very much in this line of work already. So that's what, on the dating context, that's a big thing, and I think it can make people disqualify one another before actually getting to know the human. In a romantic context, it's checking each other's social media. Why didn't you put in a picture of me? Like, my husband doesn't really share much of me on his social. I couldn't give a shit. Like, I could not give a shit, because I know how he is with me in person. He's not even that bothered about social. But when you've got that insecurity, like, people are just making social media mean all these things, and it's like, in fact, like, yeah, look, social media, it's got a place, fine, but the problem comes when you prioritize this online digital matrix over this real human interaction and human experience, and then you fall into the comparison. That's the other thing. Well, I'm in a relationship, but oh, look at this person sliding into my DMs. Oh, that person's hot. The grass is always greener, and that links to dating apps. There's a lot of people on dating apps who are in relationships. Yeah. See, that's why discernment, I talked about discernment earlier, it's so important, because you've got to really know yourself, and you've got to trust when there's if, for example, classic, if you're speaking to someone, I had a client with this, and they are not meeting up with you, there's an issue there, because you're not on a dating app to have a pen pal. If they're not meeting up with you, but they keep talking to you.
So you're trying to tell me that the last 5 women I've been speaking to are all married or in relationships? Because
they might be.
I've had.
Or they just don't fancy you enough.
Yeah, clearly. But literally,
it depends how long it's going on.
The last 4 weeks, I've had 5 dates scheduled, and been on none of them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's doing me head in. It's like, and it's like, sorry, I'm kind of gone off on a tangent, but
no, it's a good tangent.
yeah, but it makes me somewhat avoidant, and
Yeah.
I start to put my walls up.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like, yeah, I feel like everyone's just like incredibly risk averse,
Yeah.
and just nothing ever happens. And I've never known it be more difficult than it is right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I do not know what to do with it. It's difficult. Um, because it's such also as a busy person, I've got quite a lot going on in my life, thankfully, and talking to someone on Tinder or Hinge or whatever and doing all that stuff, like it's such an investment of
Mm.
time, and I've got to be like all flirty and and then you move over to Instagram or you move over to WhatsApp or whatever, and then I find that if I haven't also, and if I haven't like nailed a date within 4 to 7 days, I just totally lose interest.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because it's protective.
Mm.
But equally, it's like I don't know. Nothing seems to happen at the moment. It's weird.
Mm.
It's a very very strange dynamic. And
Got to change your approach.
you're gonna tell me to do stuff IRL?
IRL, yeah, getting different. I mean, to be honest, it's so again, everyone's like you saying risk adverse, but then I say you need to go and hang out in like, and not in just bar, like, you know, I can't tell you how many people say to me, but that's just not how you meet people nowadays. Like, that's absolute nonsense. So many of my friends, so many of my clients meet people. Like, look, humans have been meeting and procreating for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Dating apps, I'm not anti-dating apps. They are a tool.
Mm-hmm.
I literally say to clients, use them to practice all of these new things I've been teaching you. Take the pressure off, like, I'm on here to meet my husband. Because that's just that energy is not going to work for you. I have no doubt that if we dug in, like you've acknowledged, there's some avoidance stuff, and you know, we always we are attracted at the level of stuff that's going on within us. So there will always be something going on, but on a practical level, you know, if it feels shit and you're not enjoying it, then it's not right. It's like at least it's not right for you right now.
Do you mean?
So
Are you talking about dating?
apps,
Oh, so if the apps,
you know,
they I mean, I don't actually. I've not got such a bad relationship with them right now, right this minute. Other than like, yeah, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it's shit. But like in the past, they have like ruined me, like my self-confidence, where I'm like, I hate this thing so much. I'm spending inordinate amounts of money on boosts and things like this, and like it's insane because I noticed like a huge difference between when I used to use Tinder 10 years ago or whenever it was. And obviously I was 10 years younger, but I feel like I'm better now, but there we go. But in terms of like the algorithm and all the boosts and stuff like it's just totally changed. And like the gamification of it, and it just feels really I can't think of the word. It's too late on a Friday. But if it just feels like it's taken advantage of men, especially in that sort of like monetary aspect. But it's interesting how it kind of acts as a proxy for like men who can afford to dish out money on booths and things. It's like having the fancy car and the nice restaurants and like like peacocking, isn't it? Like look at these resources that I can just throw money away. It's fine. So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, maybe I need to come away from it. It's difficult as well for me because I don't drink, so pubs and stuff. Okay, like, and I've done a bit of I would say in the last 12 months, I've probably asked like 10 women out in real life. and obviously totally sober.
Mm-hmm.
My conversion rate is not that good, but
Mhm.
it's yeah. So, but then obviously, and then after that story I'm telling myself is you've asked 10 women out, you got one number, and then she never replied.
Yeah.
So you're not lovable, or do you know what I mean? There's something
Mhm.
wrong with you. And also going out to the pub and like chatting to girls and stuff when you're not drinking, bit rapey. Do you know what I mean? I don't really like doing it
Yeah.
because as soon as you notice that they're a little bit drunk, I'm like, okay, we're on a different
Yeah.
level here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't
So,
really.
so have you been spending time in, I don't like this word doesn't sound like, but like sober communities where people are, it's not, it might not even be called that, but doing shit that is just, alcohol's just not a thing, you know? That's
Yeah,
like,
so I'm big into the gym. But again, it's difficult because so getting into the gym in sort of like a community gym, it's kind of like CrossFit-y, high roxy type thing. There's lots of girls, lots of lads. It's awesome. I love it. It changed my life. Um, Number one, most of the women in that gym aren't single. But number
Mhm.
two, more importantly, I don't think you should shit where you eat.
Yeah.
So like there
Yeah.
has been like maybe like someone where I've been like, oh, maybe I should, and then I'm like, do I want to ruin this community
Mhm.
for one of us? Because that's
Yeah.
it's a really
Yeah.
risky thing. So you're like, okay, right. So I spend all my time in this gym, but then I'm gonna like, um, yeah, it's tricky. It's yeah, I don't know. It's not straightforward. I told you I wanted to talk about relationships today, but I knew I was going to talk about dating
Well,
because I can't help it.
we've talked about relationships as well.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about let's put that one to one side. Let's talk about personality types and compatibility because one of the things, fuck, when back into dating, forget it. I'm back into dating again, right? So I have found that there's a little bit of a trend for like putting your personality type and the type of, I need to be with an EFJ, fucking what,
Mhm.
XYZ, whatever. And then what I've found is because of this, I've met like a couple of girls online where I'm like, they seem really cool. We're into like similar things. We've kind of got similar personality traits. We're both a bit dorky. We're both a bit neurodivergent or whatever. I like the sound of this person. And then they just go, oh, I think we're too similar. You're an EFJ type, whatever, and I'm not sure we can be. And then they just go. So I feel like I get speaking to people where I'm like, oh, this is like my sort of person. I like this person. They want to talk about spreadsheets, and then I'm like, but then it's like it goes the other way where it's like, oh no, we're too similar. And then
Mhm.
the other side of it is, and then I'll talk to the total other side of things, and we're just so different that it's never going to work. And then the fact, like God forbid, like I mention like anything to do with like gender stereotypes or whatever, and then I'm just seen as this like patriarchal
Mhm.
figure who's, anyways, yeah, that's a long question. What do you think?
I think that the problem when we again, it's like all the boxes and all that. Like this comes back to radical surrender. Like we ultimately need to learn how to be present and connect with the human in front of us instead of like the over analyzing. But we're so in our head, and actually we don't want to be in our head in our romantic life. We want to be in our hearts. We want to be in our souls. We want to be in our bodies. We don't want to be so much in our heads. And so I'd be like, you don't have to subscribe to that. Like if someone goes, oh, we're too similar, like you don't have to get bogged down with that. I think that is just a recipe for disaster. All of these different things, they're really useful. They're really good tools to learn about yourself. But it's like, if astrology, you're like, oh, I'm an Aquarius and you're a Leo, well, that's going to be a disaster. It's like,
No,
I
yeah,
just,
yeah.
for me, I'm like, the thing that disqualifies you as being compatible is, unless you can, like, for me, I'm like, you've got to be able to have a laugh and laugh at yourself, laugh at all of this, and be a bit more playful. And it's like, you've got to put out the energy that you want to attract. So maybe like what I'm feeling is you've really lost your sense of fun and play around it all, which is understandable, because I get that it's pretty wild out there, but you've got to be really clear, right? This is how I want to feel. Like, okay, my favorite quote about this from Danielle Laporte: the journey has to feel the way you want the destination to feel. So if your dating life is feeling hard, stressful, boring, all of it, it's like, okay, but that's the energy you're bringing. So it's your responsibility to be like, what energy do I want the end result to be? How can I make the experience more of that? Because when I met my husband, I was like, oh, like, we're the definition of same, but different. We're so different in ways, and we're so similar in other ways. But the reason we connected is, and it really, honestly, I genuinely believe festivals are a really big part of my work, because I met my husband at a festival. Our wedding was a whole weekend festival. We put on this festival called Peace and Love for charity. Wow. And the reason I love them is that, well, largely because the phone signal's shit for the most part. So people like are actually being present with one another. Music, people are like actually here. Like it becomes like quite tribal.
Yeah, well, they're mimicking, you know what I mean? Like, but what our societies were like, right? Like small, like 1 to 200 people. I think that's the magic in them, right?
Yeah, 100%. So my gut feeling, because we could go in so many avenues, but I'm just going to say what I feel from you is that you need to, I told you about my processes like heal, attract, commit, that you need to get back in the energy of the attract, like the playfulness, the magic, because that's really where I was before I met my husband. I was like, I love my life. I love where I'm at. I now finally love myself. And I respect myself because I've done so much of the heal work around that. And now I know what I want. I know what the sort of end goal is that I want. And so now I'm just like going to focus on the joy and the playfulness. And that's really magnetic, because when we're coming from, this is hard, this is miserable, this is everyone's, whatever, which may well be true, but that's your frequency is that. So you're going to keep attracting things that are going to go, because the thing is, humans, we always want to be right. We are constantly proving things to ourselves. So you've got to change. Like the words that changed my life, my dad said to me on a beach in Thailand when I was at my worst, rock bottom. He said, focus on the insides, the outsides will take care of themselves. So you've got to unplug, don't overcomplicate it, unplug from all the bullshit and be like, how do I want to feel? How can I start feeling that today? That's it. People can't, it can't be that simple. I'm like, kind of is. It kind of is, because we want relationships for how we feel, it's about feeling. So we got to get out of the head and the over-analyzing everything and get into the energy of joy and play.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah, fucking hell. You're saying it, and I'm like, oh, fucking hell, yeah. God, and I'm such a boring bastard. Yeah, like... Yeah. You're so right. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I can't allow myself to experience much joy and play for some reason.
Well, that would tell me, because there's healing work you need to do then.
Yeah.
Because really what you're doing is you are
masking.
You're comfortable, you're in a safe zone here. And so you're going to sabotage it. And so that's what we do. It's like, we'll just keep looking at the problem, because we keep looking at the problem. That is going to guarantee, we're going to stay exactly where we are. Shit stinks, but it's warm.
I think I spoke about this on a previous podcast actually. And it was like, so I used to be a bit of a musician. It's not really something I do anymore, and it didn't work out for me. And I think that it reminds me too much of like a party lifestyle, drinking. So I think I've kind of like divorced that of myself, and like that's not me anymore. I can't like have fun and be on stage and stuff, because I don't want to end up like going out and getting wrecked or something, because those things are so closely related. Interesting. Thank you for the insight. But I do think, like, you're right. Like, yeah, there's times when, and obviously I talk about the gym a lot, but usually like at the gym or even at work, like I'm just like dead light and I'm playful and I'm being silly and I feel safe and I'm laughing and I'm magnetic and all these things. Putting that out across on a dating app is impossible. You just can't do it. Like, all that I end up doing is being either like incredibly boring in my like texting, or like I'll come out with something that would, like, if it's said by like this face in front of you and like you're in a room with me and I'm kind of a bit weird and like quirky, like it kind of makes sense. But just coming across as text, people just think, what the fuck's he on about? Like, what's this guy saying? Like, and yeah, and I'm like, oh, I thought it was funny. Like, and it's so difficult. So I'm like, unless you're like a master communicator via text and you're all like aloof and witty and like you're like laying out the fucking dopamine crumbs, like, then you're not very good at it. So
on the one hand, it's a skill set that you can get better at. On the other hand, I come back to my point. You don't need to be on a dating app if it doesn't sound like it's serving you. It doesn't sound like it's serving you. You need to start like saying shit to it. Like, I feel like scripting would be a really useful tool for you.
what's that?
So scripting it's like sort of more detailed than affirmations. So you would basically speak into what you want. So, okay, let me give you an example. And you say it as though it's happening, and you say it from a place of gratitude. So like, I'm so grateful that I'm having so much fun this summer. I'm getting to meet people, like that energy that I'm at the gym, like I'm feeling that, like all of these like really random but fun opportunities and like connections are sort of happening. I don't even really know how this is happening, but it's so much fun. You just basically kind of go on a bit of what Abraham Hicks calls like a rampage. You can take it further. You can do that. You can imagine that you're in the relationship and you like, I'm so grateful I'm in a relationship with a partner who gets me with such a laugh, whatever it is. And at the beginning, you're not going to believe it, but the more you do it, it's crazy how it works. It's basically expanding. It's getting, we said about shit stinks, but it's warm. Instead of being like the problem, everything's shit, the problem, it's like we're going, okay, so what, like the journey has to feel the way you want the destination to feel. So we've got to like connect to what do we want the destination to feel like.
Yeah.
And we're playing with the energy of that, and you're getting your body into it. And it's a good place to do it when you're working out, if that's a comfortable place for you. And it's you make it your own. I sometimes will just put music on and I'm dancing around. You feel like a mad person. But you're connecting to the energy of what it is that you want. And then things start shifting. But it's a practice like, for me, it's more powerful than meditation. When I do this, and I've got like, I literally put it in my phone notes. Like sometimes I write it down, sometimes I just say it in the moment. It's anything that I want to change or I want something. It's like being in the energy of having that thing. It's like a bit manifesting 101. But the point of it is, it's not even to get that thing. It's just to change your energy up around the thing and stop living in the problem of this thing isn't here, this thing isn't here, I hate this, this thing isn't here. The more you're in that, because that's the thing, is you're already scripting, you're already doing it, you're just doing it out of habit. So you've got to, it's like, well, I need to be saying shit and changing the neural pathways in line with what I want, instead of just keep beating the drum of what I don't want.
Yeah, it's like positive, like self-delusion. Like if you're going to be deluded, you might as well be positive about it.
Exactly. I have everything that I have today because of positive. I love that positive self-delusion. That's brilliant. I'm stealing that.
I think I may have stole it from Chris Williamson, so I can't take that one. Yeah, but it's true though, isn't it? Like I think he was talking about it, in like just in all areas of life, or in like in business or whatever, if you think of someone who's been successful, most of the successful people are just extremely they have such self-belief to a point of delusion, isn't it? But then they just, yeah, they just, that allows them to go forth in the world, and stuff happens because,
you know, my dad's actually here at my house at the moment. He's been doing the garden, and he's such a good example because of where he came from. He sort of came from nothing. I won't go into the whole story, but because it's a lot of illegal activities, but he's created a sort of, you know, he's very bold. He does not give a fuck what people think of him. He's a real action taker, but there's an energy of decision. Like, it's really important if, like, this is what's happening. And there's other things, like he's very in his masculine. He's had to really learn, you know, to connect to the feminine and other areas. But in terms of like getting what you want, if you're too in that, just that, you know, whatever, you might get what you want, but you might piss a lot of people off along the way. Whereas if you can be like, you decide, you like, this is the end result I want, and it's like you just decide that's, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but that's just a decision, that's a reality for me. And that's why, like, go and read books from people who have what you want but came, like, really that's why I wrote my book, because I was like, as someone who was the worst person I knew in romance, if you read my book and you see the journey I went on, that the hope is that it's going to go, well, if she can do it, if she can go from being there to what she is now, then surely it's possible for me. And so surrounding yourself with examples of people who change the story makes you go, oh, it's possible. Otherwise we just go, what, you know, it's what we were talking about with the red pill blue pill. It's like, what is going on now? Because this is all I can see. That's just it. And that's just going to be it. And there's no other possibility. You have literally just cast a spell over yourself. It's like, now you have made that decision. That is all that is available to you. So it's like, you know, because you work out. How do you get some abs? Do you sit on your ass and eat kettle chips and fucking fry-ups day in, day out in front of Netflix and not do any working out? No, you understand. It's like very logical. If I want some ripped abs, I better get in the gym, better eat some fucking chicken and broccoli, whatever it is. You know what I mean? And then, but people don't, it's like, but it's exactly the same process with anything else you want. If you want an amazing love life, guess what? You're going to have to put in some time and energy, because the way that you're showing up now is not working for you. It's just that we've not been taught that. We've been taught that in terms of getting a nice body. We've not been taught that in any other area. Yeah,
and it's like, it's not very sexy to be intentional. Like, it's like, oh, you know, you need to stop looking, it'll find you. But I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's a slightly different point. Like, yeah, what does the role? That's a good question. Like, what is the role of like intentionality versus serendipitous meetings in romance?
Oh, I have a whole chapter in my book on this.
Okay,
it's great.
wow.
Called Sliding Doors. I think they go hand in hand. I don't think it's one versus the other.
Mm-hmm.
When you are intentional, like what I've just said about, like, know what the end result is, and then how do I become an energetic match for that? And there's all sorts of things you can do. Scripting is one example that I just gave. It goes back to okay, so it's like the four missing pieces of the quotient. So energy, we've talked about energy, discernment. So what do I want? What do I not want? And then communication, like, where do I need to communicate that to, like, that behavior doesn't feel good to me, or whatever it is. And then it's the radical surrender, which is the serendipity. How I met my husband, and I won't go into the story now because it's a long one. It boggles my mind how we met. It absolutely boggles my mind. And I was like, I couldn't have written a better love story for myself if I tried. It was so fucking nuts. And I've had a lot of clients who've had similar experiences, because I was like, I'm a romantic at heart. Like, I want an exciting love story. And I was very clear about that. But then I was like, but let go of how. And then it's like the universe just went, there you go. And I was like, fucking hell. And that's why, again, you know, you asked me at the beginning, why do I do this? Because I think we've lost that with the modern dating. It's like all that romance and this, you know, the magic of it. And I was really intentional that I want that. But in order to have that, you've got to surrender how it comes about, because it's not magic when you're like controlling every move. So you've got to, again, it's exactly what I said earlier. Do the work and then leave it in the wings. So do the work that you need to do on yourself, and then surrender the how the thing comes about. Because when we try and control that, we kind of push it away, or we stifle it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and it makes me think about what's your thoughts on law of attraction?
Yeah, well, I think, I believe in it. Like, it makes a lot of logical sense to me, in the way that it's like when people don't go, do you believe in gravity?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We don't question it. I think the problem is that it's sort of been positioned as like, get the car, get the guy, what I mean? It's like very based on superficiality. Whereas
Snake
now
oil.
I'm like, yeah, it's like, just like focus. Like, if you just do nothing else, how do you might die tomorrow. You might not get any of the things that you want. So how do you want to feel today? Like, I know today's been, it's been a big day. I actually had, do you know what? I'm just going to completely like off topic. My day started, I was in this meeting on Zoom, and there was a Zoom bomber. Never fucking heard of this. Never heard of it. And I do a lot of Zoom. And it was the most graphic, disgusting porn. Like, I don't even know. I can't even say. It was vile. And they basically, and I thought, if they corrupted like, what were they doing? There was like 20, 30 people in this meeting. It was awful. And so I had a really funky start to the day. And I've had a really full on day, lots of clients, meeting, all sorts. And now I'm like, the sun's come out finally. And I'm like, I've always been the achiever. I'm like, there's always more to do. I'm like, no. Do you know what? I'm going to go, I'm going to sit in the sunshine, because what I want to feel today, I want to feel relaxed, and I want to feel some joy. And that's my priority. And that's it. Like, we only ever want the stuff because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way. Like, why do you want the relationship? What is it, like, beyond because society says so? Why do you want the relationship?
That question.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer it now, but then you're going to ask me another why. But I guess because I want to have a family, and then you're going to say, why do you want a family? Is that right?
Yeah. You got it.
Right, I'll skip ahead 5 whys.
Good.
Because I'm afraid of dying alone.
Okay. So how can you say that?
How can I add it to my Tinder profile?
That's quite funny. I'd probably
Hello,
stop the scroll
ladies.
if you said afraid to die alone. Yeah. So okay, that's the work you need to do then, because that may well be true, and I think all humans can relate to that. But what would a way to sort of say the same thing be, but it's coming from the positive as opposed to coming from the negative? For something you're trying to get away from, what are you trying to get towards? For me, the clue is the fact you do a podcast. It tells me everything.
Yeah,
it's very
connection.
Simple. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Connection.
Yeah, love and connection.
Yeah.
I always have this like visual. I picture myself like in like this garden, and I'm at the barbecue, and there's like kids running around, maybe my grandkids or whatever. I'm like, stay away from that fence or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always go to that. Like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I think because that's basically what thankfully I grew up sort of witnessing some of that before my parents split up, and it was just so beautiful. My grandparents there, and everyone's like just having fun and just chilling out, and that's it. That's all I want. That is all I want.
So
not
that's
much,
what
right?
You need. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And you need to be like, what are you giving? Like, that's what you need to be playing with, is that picture. And what are you giving to those people? And I know that I can tell just from this conversation, you have a lot to give, a lot of love. So you need to get out of basically you just need to flip the scarcity thinking into the abundant thinking. The visual of the garden and the barbecue and the different generations, make that your guiding light, as opposed to the fear, scarcity of being alone, which is what most of the world is coming from. That's what makes you stand out. People want to date people who are open, expansive, like they're living from like cup overflowing, not cup half, whatever the expression is, So that's the work. And that comes back to what I was saying earlier about the magic and the play. But you've got your end goal in mind and you know why you want that. So you just need to keep connecting to that vision.
Yeah.
But when you see yourself in that picture, are you saying some of the negative things that you've said today around it? No. So you need to show up in your life as that version of that. And this is literally how I got my relationship. It's like when I think about that picture for me, and and by the way, all of those visuals I had some really random ones. They all came true. It was so weird. I had some really niche like visuals. Like when I meditated, I saw like your version of the barbecue. I had a few different things. They all happened. And I said to my husband, I was like early on in dating, I was like, I saw this. He's like, what? I was like, I swear to God, I saw this. And I kept connecting to that. How do I feel in that picture? And who am I being? Am I complaining about how shit dating is? And no. I'm like loving life and I'm being fun and I'm being like silly and that's it. You got to show up as that person, and that person is in you because that person's at the gym. You need to learn how to put that person just everywhere you can.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to let you go now and enjoy your weekend. Are you off work now? Is that?
Yeah, I'm clocking off. It's 10 to 5 and it's been a long day. It's been a long week, but it's been great. But my body's just like, it's time to chill now.
Yeah. Well, listen, I really appreciate you doing this. You're a very busy person, so I'm extremely grateful. I've really enjoyed this. You've given me lots of insights. Interesting. I didn't want to go down this route today, but I kind of knew it was going to go because I had this like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I am doing my best to be nothing but authentic in this podcast. So thank you for chatting with me. Where should we direct people to find out all about your stuff? Please plug away.
The best place I would say is actually Instagram, just at Persia Lawson. I feel like no one sends people to their websites anymore. Like
link
you
in
can
bio.
go to persialawson.com. But Instagram, well, what I like about it is you can just sort of send a DM. Like if you got value from this, let me know. It's what we always love to hear it. Us podcast guests.
Yeah.
You can come and say hi, and all my links are on there, and some very juicy content. And obviously I've got my podcast Love is Coming, got some great episodes, and my book Love is Coming. You can access all of that via my Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you again, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, Persia.
Bye.